Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up? What's up?
Hey, we at it again, man. We at it again.
Yeah, well, I think we got a. I hope we got a decent show. Hope we don't make too many people mad.
Hey, well, look, I always this is what I always say. If we're talking about a topic and all of a sudden you start to feel a little uncomfortable, then it's your job to examine those feelings and try to understand why you feeling uncomfortable. Could it be cognitive dissonance, or it could be a lot of different things? So, but you got to figure that out.
But we got to define that. But before we get into the definitions, Lord, let's get started,
Let's
man.
get started. All righty. All
All
right.
right.
We always try to try out something new, man. Try to, that's how we got to do it, man. You know how it is.
I like that. I like that. That's
Yeah.
smooth.
All right. I mean, so I guess we're gonna try to do something right now. Right now, we're gonna before we get started, we're gonna try to get some shout outs. Junior, you got anybody who you want to give a shout out to?
Um, yeah, man. Matter of fact, yeah, our cousin, Tia Hart, Tracy's daughter. She started her freshman year at Rutgers, University
Okay.
up in New Jersey.
All right.
Um, so always like to hear when our cousins doing good things, man. We grew up right beside Tracy, right?
Yeah,
And
we did.
I remember. I think so, if I'm not mistaken. I think she went from kindergarten all the way to her senior in high school and graduation, and I don't think she missed one day of school.
Hold on. We gotta fact check that. Hey Tracy. Hey Tracy, if you listen to us right now, is that true? You ain't miss a day of school. Type
Yo,
in yes
man.
or no. Type in yes or no in the chat.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, let me tell you something crazy about that, man. Like I said, they were right beside us. When I was in graduate school at North Carolina Central, Tracy was a professor in the criminal justice department,
Oh.
and Linda Kyle was a professor at in the school of library science.
Oh
So I'm
man.
walking across campus. I got two cousins I grew up right beside with. They professors at the school, man. How crazy is that?
Yeah, that is crazy, man. That is crazy.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right, man.
man.
So look, man. What we got today, man? I mean, I guess we're gonna talk about the Queen. There's a lot of stuff going on about the Queen, but
Yeah,
yeah, we're gonna try to hit some of those current events real quick. Hey, what's some of those events that's going on, Junior?
man. I don't know where to start, man. Brett Favre.
Oh. Speaking of Brett Favre, I think we have a little something on Brett Favre. Hold on for a second.
Yeah.
So text messages were just released that showed that Brett Favre here took $5 million from the state of Mississippi's welfare fund to build a new volleyball arena. So these texts from 5 years ago, they were just released between Brett Favre and the former governor of Mississippi, which shows them giving Brett Favre this money from the welfare fund, which, let me remind you, Mississippi is one of the poorest states in the country, to build a new volleyball arena at Southern Miss, which is where Brett Favre went and where his daughter, shockingly enough, played volleyball. And this top text here is kind of hard to see. Is Brett Favre literally asking if the media can find out, asking if they can get caught. And this is not the first time shit like this has happened with Brett Favre. Like, the state of Mississippi on multiple occasions has paid him anywhere from like a couple $100,000 to over $1 million for speaking events and initiatives. Then he's had to give that money back because he hasn't done anything. And what's weird about this is Brett Favre is so rich. Like, he is so rich. We've seen those stupid Gene commercials. He could afford to buy that volleyball stadium without the state's help, without the welfare fund.
Man.
Oh, so a lot to unpack there, man. First
Yeah.
of all, that's why there is such a stigma put on people who rely on welfare funds, right? So the stigma is these people are lazy and they sit down and they're living off the taxpayers' dollars and things of that nature. That's the perception
Yeah.
that's out there. And we can speak to that. We have anecdotal evidence. We
Yeah.
lived in Trent Court, right, which is a housing authority, right?
Yeah.
And for the most part, most everybody worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, they may not have been making a living wage, but mostly everybody that lived there worked.
Yeah.
So, but it goes to show you that the funds that are meant to go to help these people, these poor people who need it, are being used for things like that. I'm sure that Jackson, Mississippi could use some of those funds for their water plant.
Yeah, but also if you go back and look at it, Jackson, I got a little echo. Jackson, Mississippi. Well, I'll say Mississippi in general. They have the lowest acceptance rate of people of welfare claims. So the people who need it the most, according to all the restrictions that they don't get those funds. But so we have an anecdotal experience, but I also have personal experience. I know you worked at the Department of Social Services in Duplin.
Yeah,
I worked at the Department of Social Services in Goldsboro, Wayne County, and the majority of the clients that I dealt with, and when I say the majority, I'm talking 95%. They worked, and not only did they worked multiple jobs.
yeah, yeah. With East Carolina Human Services Agency was a nonprofit, but yeah, the same. You're right. Most of the people I had that were qualified for the funds,
Yeah.
they were working two, three jobs and going to school at the same time, trying to get out of poverty, those type of things. But
So
goes back to show you the perception is not the reality.
yeah, it's man. I
And
don't
hold
know
up, and
why.
you said they Jackson got the lowest
Not Jackson, just
acceptance rate
Mississippi
because of
in general.
restrictions.
Mississippi in general.
I mean, because of restrictions.
Yeah.
So
Well,
what? So
because of how
what?
hard it is to get. Yes.
Yeah. So what kind of restrictions were in place? What kind of metric was used that allowed Brett Favre to get $5 million for a volleyball stadium or whatever,
Yeah.
and to get these thousand dollars for speaking?
I, that is a good point.
Okay.
That's a very good point.
Okay.
Hey, Junior, does it sound like I have an echo?
Nah, you don't have echo to me.
I don't. Okay, let me try this. Okay. Well, I
Okay.
don't know. I don't know what's going on. If that's, but anyway, and Brett Favre obviously knew that he was doing something wrong. Because
Yeah.
if you can see in that text, he was like, "Is there any way that the media could find out?" I mean, so that's how you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Can we say smoking gun?
Smoking gun. Yeah, it is a smoking gun.
Yeah.
Somebody
So
said that
and
the sound is going.
Tracy said the sound is going in and out on her end. So
Yeah, it must be something going on with my microphone. Okay, I think we're good now. I think we're
okay.
good now.
All right. How's that, Tracy? Is that better?
Well, okay, so he said it's fine on his end. So we'll have to. Well, we'll just have to monitor it. I mean, we'll have to
Okay.
monitor it.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, okay. She said it's good now.
Okay.
So you just think about the people. Mississippi ranks at the bottom, and we're talking about the bottom. We're talking about between 49th and the 50th in education and healthcare and infrastructure and all those metrics that you measure how good a state is doing. But
Yeah.
yet they have the ability to give all that money to Brett Favre to build a volleyball stadium. I mean, it's yeah,
Yeah. On a team that his daughter plays for.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. Yeah, all
yeah,
right. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
yeah.
Yeah. And so it also goes to show you that poverty is not just is an issue that affects everybody, whether you're in a red state or a blue state. Poverty is an issue that affects everybody.
Correct,
Um,
correct.
but that being said, if we look, this is just facts. You look it up yourself. Even though poverty is an issue that affects everybody, the states with the worst outcomes as far as education, healthcare, poverty, are states that are run by Republican legislatures.
Correct.
Fact, fact check me if I'm wrong. I'm fact check if I'm wrong. So let's just goes to show you.
Yeah, no, I mean it is, and not
Not
only
saying there are not issues in Chicago and place parts of Chicago and all the other places that have issues with crime and things of that nature. Parts of Chicago, not all Chicago. Excuse me for my Chicago friends,
well,
but it goes. But when it comes to the worst outcomes, at the bottom poorest, the numbers are there.
well, yeah, but when you talk about Chicago, we're talking about Illinois as a whole. So you're right.
Yeah,
There are pockets in every state.
Please.
But in terms of statewide,
Statewide, yes.
yes,
Exactly statewide. There,
statewide,
there's
Mississippi,
no
Alabama, all those places are Louisiana, ran
Kentucky,
by,
Mississippi,
yeah.
like we just said, Georgia.
And it's not only that they've been ran by those governors, but we're talking about years and decades. We talk about years and years and years. You take a look at Kentucky with Rand Paul, and you look at Mitch McConnell, two senators from the state of Kentucky. Now we know senators don't have as much impact as the governor and then the state legislators. But my point is that right now Kentucky ranks number 47th among states, and all those things that we just talked about, healthcare, all those kind of outcomes. Why are people still voting for Republicans in their states? Because you see this
in those
trope,
specific states, yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
because you notice the tropes that they say. Why are people still voting for Democrats? And you look at, well, let's look at outcomes. Not campaign rhetoric, but just look at outcomes.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Move around along.
I know, man. I know, man. Something else in the news that has happened. That's happening on our southern border. And this is what I'll say. I don't like the term illegal. Okay, it's just something that's, I don't know. I won't say that's triggering, but I don't like the term illegal as it applies to human beings.
Well, here's the thing: the ones that are coming through the border the right way, and the ones that are getting transported up, they're not legal. They're actually following the asylum process.
Correct.
So there are ones that are sneaking through. I don't like the term illegal for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But the ones that are actually getting put on those buses and everything,
Yeah.
they're actually following the prescribed legal process to seek asylum.
But the issue is that the folks who are talking about this and trying to make it a political issue, they're conflating people who are seeking asylum.
Yeah.
From places like Venezuela, places like Guatemala, Nicaragua, Mexico, Honduras, and me and my brother, we say this all the time. The United States has contributed over the years to the issue that we have at our southern border, because we went in and we destabilized all those countries.
Man, look, that's a conversation that can be added when we get to the Queen.
Yes, but
you're right. You're right. You're exactly right. Though, see, and things is, nobody wants to talk about the legacy of imperialism.
Correct.
They, I guess, is almost like critical race theory. You don't want to say anything that's negative, but it's the truth. And when these countries wanted to have their own democracies, wanted to use their own resources, their own natural wealth to build up their countries, it was American business interests that went in there with the help of the government and destabilized them and put leaders in place that would be friendly to American businessmen.
Okay. So let me stop you right there for 1 second. Let me stop you right there, because we about to get into that hard. We're about to hit that hard.
Okay.
But to your point, there are multiple reasons, and you have to be intellectually honest when we talk about the reason why we have so many people coming in our border. And so something happened last night, and I can tell you I'm still frustrated about it, because at the end of the day, we're dealing with human beings. We're dealing with men, women, children who are trying to just fight for their lives and trying to make a better life for their children. So Ron DeSantis out of Florida, the governor of Florida, he decided to. Now there are multiple reports out there that talk about whether or not the immigrants, they were lied to. But to make a long story short, they put them on the bus, put them on the plane, and they flew them to Martha's Vineyard. And Fox News had the cover story. I'm just gonna go to this video real quick.
has sent migrants on a plane to Martha's Vineyard. Now, this is where the Obamas have a home, Oprah, Beyonce, even James Taylor, who's going to be seeing fire, rain, and migrants. Not to mention Rosie O'Donnell. I mean, everybody basically that you know on the left has a home there. Do you think they're going to be embracing their new neighbors?
You know, these are all sanctuary cities until they're in their sanctuary.
Right.
I doubt they'll embrace them. Don't know that I've ever been to Martha's Vineyard. I've been to places where we've seen these migrants come across. This is not good for America. Every town's a border town, and we need to make sure we get our southern border secured exactly like we did for 4 years, Jesse.
All right, Mike Pompeo. But DeSantis has sent migrants.
Now, did you see the smirk? The smirk on his face when when
Well-
they're talking about these human beings.
Well, here's the thing. The issue is that a good bit of Fox viewers who are xenophobic and whatever, they don't see his people as human.
Yeah,
So when you don't see people of color as human, and you don't see the humanity in them, then you can laugh and do stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
and
So I
Go ahead.
totally understand the mindset. I understand the mindset, but yet it is kind of cruel because it's a stunt because you intentionally send them to a place, like Martha's Vineyard and places like that. You passed a whole bunch of states on the way.
correct.
You passed North Carolina, you passed South Carolina, not South Carolina,
Yeah,
but you passed a lot of states on the way. But you specifically target out states that are perceived as being run or be left liberal and things of that nature. And you use these people or these humans, as you say, as a stunt. And I think it's reprehensible.
yeah.
But hey, that's where we are in politics.
Well,
let's have politics.
cruelty is the point. It's the point.
Cruelty,
Cruelty is the point. But
Yeah.
so I've been following the story all day, and to come to find out, the people of Martha's Vineyard, they did come together. They came together and they took some of their Spanish-speaking kids out of school today because the majority of the people were Spanish-speaking. They didn't speak any English. So some of those kids, the community embraced them. A lot of people don't know that a lot of these border states, they get government funding to help deal with the southern border. So it's not like they're spending, they're spending money, but a lot of the money that they're spending comes from Department of Homeland Security. So they're getting money, these border states, to house and take care and follow the process that you talked about earlier.
Exactly. And what it also shows what those people did in Martha's Vineyard, that they came together because perception is these wealthy elite that whatever is that humanity always wins.
Yes, exactly.
So when DeSantis was like, okay, we're gonna send them up there and they gonna see how it is and whatever. Oh, they didn't take the racist xenophobic route.
Correct.
They took these people in and treated them like humans. So,
Exactly.
hey,
Exactly.
so there.
And
Humanity always wins.
And before we get into our main topic, this is something that I wanna say real quick, because you notice that they talked about Obama, they talked about Oprah, about all these Rosie O'Donnell living there because they're elite. The same people that's talking are elite. These people are Harvard educated, Yale educated.
Yeah.
You couldn't even. And Donald Trump had the golden freaking toilet, and somehow they've convinced people that the only elite people. Ron DeSantis is Harvard educated.
Pompeo is, I think he's Harvard or he's West Point. I think he might be West Point. Yeah.
So
Or Harvard Law. I think he's Harvard Law as well.
Ted Cruz, Harvard educated.
Yeah.
So all these people went to these elite schools, and they've convinced their viewers that they're just like them.
Yeah.
So
and that's the thing. And here's the thing. And here's the unfortunate part. And just so you know, some of these MAGA supporters back in these areas, these poor people that have put their hopes and their dreams into Donald Trump and the MAGA movement, you gotta understand that Trump and his circle has as much disdain for his own those folk
Correct.
as he has for the immigrants.
Well, it reminds me of this Dave Chappelle skit that he did. Dave Chappelle did a skit. You know, he's from Akron, Ohio. You know, so he was waiting in line and he was talking about how all these poor people were in line with him. You know, he was like, you know, even though he was a celebrity, he still had to, to stand in line to vote just like everybody else. But he's like, he see all these people and they're talking about Donald Trump's going to Washington to fight for me. He's going to go fight for me. And David Chappelle kind of looked at him and he said, you know what, you dumb Emma Elfers. He said he's not fighting for you. He's fighting for me because he's rich.
He's rich. That's right.
Exactly. He's rich. And now I can't give Chappelle the justice because he really, but it's the point. He's like, Donald Trump is not going, he did not go to Washington to fight for those rural people that live in Duplin County, the rural people that live in Wayne County, the rural poor people who don't have internet, those rural poor people who couldn't even when the pandemic hit, they couldn't do virtual education because one, they didn't have computers. But these people have those Donald Trump signs all over their yard with the roof hanging off, thinking that he's fighting for them and he's fighting for rich people.
Yeah. What he did, he gave him something to feel good about.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. But that tax bill he passed benefited only people in the wealth class.
Correct.
Yeah. But that's how it is, man. Those are the ones. Those are the ones. Look. Is he paying the legal fees for those people at the riot that went and try to get him back in?
Hey, but I don't know if you know that that Donald Trump, his campaign, his super PAC is being investigated. Well, two things. Steve Bannon was just arrested a few weeks ago because he did a fund to build the wall fund and he used the money himself. Donald Trump knew that the election wasn't stolen, so he fundraised off Stop the Steal, and none of the money went to fighting any of the election those election lawsuits.
Yeah, the RNC been flipping that bill.
It's a grift. It's all a grift.
It's a grift, yeah.
Yeah.
What's that thing? Cognitive dissonance?
Yeah.
What's that term?
Go ahead and define that for the people in the back who may not know what that means.
Well, I think cognitive dissonance, and let me get my vocabulary about it. I think is that, correct me if I'm wrong, is when you bought up or you believe something, right?
Yes.
And you have a core belief.
Like Donald Trump is going to Washington to fight for me.
Yeah, core belief, right? But when you're presented with evidence that contradicts that belief,
yeah,
it's more comfortable to stay with the lie.
Yeah. Like when you found out that Jesus wasn't white.
Or when I found out that there was no Santa Claus, we was this boy who didn't believe in Santa Claus. We bullied him.
Yeah.
Because we thought something was wrong with him.
Yeah. And we thought that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves because he thought it was the right thing to do.
Okay, let's go right.
Okay.
We can go. We can go. Look. Yeah, we can go, man. Yeah, we can go.
All right, I'm gonna play this video before we.
Everybody.
I'm gonna play this video as we segue into our topic today.
Okay.
Here are the countries that broke free from British rule during the Queen's reign: Ghana, Malaysia, Cyprus, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Kuwait, Zanzibar and Tanganyika, Trinidad and Tobago, Uganda, Jamaica, Kenya, Malawi, Malta, Zambia, Maldives, Gambia, Guyana, Botswana, Lesotho, Barbados, South Yemen, Mauritius, Eswatini, Tonga, Fiji, Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Bahamas, Grenada, Seychelles, Solomon Islands, Tuvalu, Dominica, St. Lucia, Kiribati, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Zimbabwe, Belize, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Brunei.
Johnny, some people just came on. I'm gonna play that video one more time to let it sink in. Some more people just came online.
Okay, you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna play that video one more time.
Okay.
Here are the countries that broke free from British rule during the Queen's reign: Ghana, Malaysia, Cyprus, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Kuwait, Zanzibar and Tanganyika, Trinidad and Tobago, Uganda, Jamaica, Kenya, Malawi, Malta, Zambia, Maldives, Gambia, Guyana, Botswana, Lesotho, Barbados, South Yemen, Mauritius, Eswatini, Tonga, Fiji, Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Bahamas, Grenada, Seychelles, Solomon Islands, Tuvalu, Dominica, St. Lucia, Kiribati, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Zimbabwe, Belize, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Brunei.
Okay. Hey, what's up, Sorrento, man? Thanks for tuning in, man. Make sure you stay. You might learn something. So, long live the Queen.
Yeah. So and I got a little bit of pushback, about a post I did about the Queen. And the thing is that, and I always say this, is that people who have been oppressed, right? They tend to have longer memories than the descendants of the oppressors.
Correct.
Because the oppressed are still dealing with the residual effects, right? So some people can say something never happened and nothing bothered them. When it comes to the Queen passing away, of course, nobody wants to celebrate the death of anybody, right? That's somebody's mother, grandmother.
Yeah.
But you can't separate the Queen from what it represented to a lot of people. I think Shakespeare said it best in Julius Caesar, the scene when not Brutus, but when Mark Antony was speaking at Julius Caesar's funeral. He was like, the evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred with their bones, right? So in other words, the evil or the bad's gonna live on. And people gotta understand that for us, what we've been fed about the Queen is totally different if you're from Kenya, if you're from Zimbabwe, if you're from Ghana, if you're from Nigeria. First of all, shout out to the former colonies of Ghana and Nigeria, because their presidents, their first presidents were actually members of Phi Beta Sigma. And Nami Azikiwe in Nigeria, and Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana. Had to get that out there. But that being said, at one point, the British Empire controlled 1/5 of the world's population. There was this saying that the British Empire was so vast across the globe that they say the sun never set on the British Empire.
Yeah.
It was so vast.
Yeah.
And we gotta understand that when you say colonialism and colonial rule and the process of colonizing a people, You just don't walk in and say, "Hey, we want to come in and take over."
Yeah, but the video showed people her shaking hands. People look happy, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, even in Kenya, right?
Yeah.
Even in Kenya. But look at here's the thing. Look at the brutal suppression, right?
Hmm.
So of course when the queen come through, you're gonna be on your quote unquote best behavior. But in the background, what you don't see behind the queen is the military force
Hmm.
that enforces the rule of colonialism. And if you look at look up the Boer genocide, um, look up the Mau Mau suppression, how the British were cutting people's heads off and things of that nature when the Mau Mau, which are the ones who were trying to fight for their freedom from Britain, you got to look at it in context of how England ruled these countries.
Hey, but them Kenyans fought back though, boy.
Oh, Males Kenyans, yeah, yeah. Um, it's this book. First of all, I'm by look. My one of my concentrations was Middle Eastern African Studies. So when you say how the Kenyans fought back, that's Jomo Kenyatta.
Yeah.
He wrote this book called Facing Mount Kenya,
Hmm.
and talked about how the Mau Mau Rebellion, how those Mau Mau, how they fought the British rule. But it also details how brutal the British was in that oppression. And so those countries, like I said, the Queen, she's been 70 years.
Hmm.
So those are the countries that just broke free during that time. Don't forget a few years before, when India broke free from British rule and how brutal that oppression was.
Um,
And of course, whenever the monarch visited, of course the people are going to be smiling, whatever. But they were still being controlled by the brutal forces of the British Empire. And even though the Queen may not be, uh, uh, may not have the power at
yeah.
that time, but she was the figurehead. And her family's wealth is also built off of those those colonies.
Yeah.
Every the crown jewels, all of those jewels, the sepulchre, all those things, those jewels come from places across the world that were
Hmm.
colonized by the British.
Yeah.
So we have to keep that in perspective. Is that I understand that the queen in this country is probably beloved. If you talk to some of our Nigerian brothers and sisters or some of our Kenyan brothers and sisters, uh, they will say something different because they have relatives that are still living, or half of their families that were wiped out and murdered under the guise of British colonialism, in which the Queen represented.
Yeah.
So that's why I say is to look at that perspective.
Um, and so as you were speaking, it made me think about something. Now I know that you're probably a lot more well versed, particularly with Kenya and trying to end the British rule. But
Hmm.
just thinking about it from a geopolitical standpoint and where America was at that point,
Yeah.
the Americans, they were afraid of what was happening in Kenya, the
Oh
impact
yeah.
they would have with African Americans that lived in the United States,
Oh yeah.
and particularly when Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, once they finally realized that they had to take the struggle out of America, even though African Americans were struggling, and then talk about it from an international standpoint and look at how African Americans and people of color were struggling all around the world. I mean, so it's all connected.
Boy, let me tell you, man, you get to see. Here's the thing. Um, Martin Luther King, he actually, I want to say it was Ghana, when Ghana had their uh, celebration. Ghana used to be called the Gold Coast
Hmm.
because of all the gold that was there. When they had their celebration, a lot of Americans, Martin Luther King, Harry Belafonte, all those people were over there in Ghana celebrating. And the FBI, this is all, check it out, it's there.
Hmm.
You made an excellent point, and they were keenly aware of African Americans making connections with the struggle for independence in Africa and Asia versus over here making those connections. You're absolutely right. But when it comes to while we talked about those countries in Asia, in Central America, in Africa, it's almost like you can how can I say it? Post-colonialism syndrome. You can almost apply the concept of critical race theory to it.
Yeah.
Where you can look at how the outcomes of these countries, the situations they're in, whether it be you alluded to it earlier in our podcast, where these countries in Africa, even though they have the majority of the world's natural wealth, the natural wealth, they have never been able to use that wealth to build up their countries, to build up their infrastructure, because their wealth was continuously and continues to be siphoned off by Western powers.
Yes.
And then we sit here in America and we look at these countries on TV and we say we have the audacity to call them third world.
Yes.
Well, if you let them use their own resources, right? So and another thing, and I don't want to get too far up into the weeds. Even though these countries were free and broke away, Kwame Nkrumah came up with this concept called neo-colonialism, the new colonialism, almost like slavery by another name. Even though these countries got their independence, they were still being marginalized and controlled by the former colonial powers, whether it was through the United Nations, where countries were now allowed to be on the Security Council and things of that nature, or whether it was by the International Monetary Fund that forces these African countries to devalue their currency in order to get out loans. It's almost like the countries that had the audacity to get their freedom, they were almost being punished by the former colonial powers. Case in point, Western Hemisphere, Haiti.
Yeah.
Haiti got their independence from French in this 1700s, right? Late 1800s, right?
Yeah.
Haiti was never recognized by any countries, especially America, because they didn't want these slaves in America to realize there was a free black country down there in the ocean, close to our border. So it's the same dynamic. These free African countries, they get their freedom, and they punish them for getting their freedom. And that legacy, when you're talking about the Queen Elizabeth and the royal family, and the wealth that they have, is built up on that legacy of pre-colonialism and post-colonialism. Didn't mean to go off on that tangent like that.
No. You're right. You're right, because this is one of those. Hey, Phil, what's up, man? Hey, Phil gave us a shout out. This Smith Wars. Hey, thanks for listening, Phil.
Oh, Phil, what's up? What's up, Phil, my boy? Hey, man, you gonna make it to the birthday party? What, man? You waiting for my birthday party?
Hey, we'll I'm not sure if he's still on, but we'll check him out.
Okay.
You bring up one good point though, and you talk about how did they acquire their wealth, and I always go back to Iran.
Oh my goodness!
I always think about how back in the day in the 70s, Iran did it the right way. They held a democratically. Go ahead.
Go back a few years.
Huh?
Go back. Masegada.
Yeah, Musa. Yeah.
Mama, that was in the 50s.
Yeah, he wanted to. Go ahead. Yeah. Sometimes I get this brain fog of COVID, man. Ain't no joke, man. Well, I had COVID, and I still have brain fog. But thanks for correcting me. But the point that I was trying to make is that they held a democratically elected election, and he decided that he wanted to nationalize their oil so that they can maintain their own profits. But
democratically elected.
Yes.
I mean, the people voted to elect him.
Yes.
And he kicked out the Anglo Oil Company.
Yeah. What was it called? BP, for people who don't know back in the day?
Well, it wasn't called BP then. It became
It
BP.
became, formerly, it became British Petroleum, yes.
Yeah.
And then what do we do? What did the United States do in true form? When we wanted to instill democracy in all these other countries, that's what we wanted to do. We did a coup. We overthrew that government and put in the what was his name? The Shah of
the Shah of Iran.
The Shah of Iran. And this is just one. Now the question is: was the United States in Britain, were they working in cahoots, or?
Yeah. Yes, it's out there. The CIA files have already been released, so just go look it up. Read. But cognitive dissonance might kick in. But man, that is an excellent point you made about Iran.
Yeah.
Iran was a democratic country, like you said, and Massaga used the money to build up the country. Look, he was Time Man of the Year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
He kicked out it was called the Anglo-Iran Oil Company, the MI5, and the CIA conspired to overthrow Massaga and bring in Iran, which was friendly to oil.
Yes.
Yeah. Now they supported the Shah of Iran, even though he was brutal.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
He was brutal to the people. In 1979, those people who were children during right.
That's why I got my dates mixed up. Yes.
They remembered.
Yes. Excuse me.
So when you're talking about when Iran says death to the great Satan, and they're talking about the United States, and this is not about being being unpatriotic. This is just facts.
Yeah, it's just facts.
You know?
Yeah,
it's just facts. When they call the United States the great Satan, look at the history of Iran and see exactly where that comes from.
Yeah.
Because like you said, we say we want democracy, but we want democracy on our own terms.
Correct.
Right? And when it comes to the Middle East, which was same thing, colonized by the French, colonized by the English, wanted the oil. When it comes to the Middle East and the oil, these democratic countries will go in and support brutal dictators for their own end.
Correct.
That's what Kwame Nkrumah was talking about, that neo-colonialism. That even though these countries are quote-unquote independent, the former colonial powers, like the United States, still go in and intervene in their affairs.
Correct.
How many wars have been fought in the Middle East over that oil?
Yeah.
That we don't want them to control.
Correct.
So,
and how is this related? This is how they maintained their wealth and how they got their wealth.
Yeah.
I mean that's just a reality. But also the racism surrounding Meghan Markle. I mean that's also another thing that's
so
that.
Yeah. So here's the thing. British outlawed slavery before the United States did, right? Way before they did, right?
Mm-hmm.
They did. But it doesn't mean that they changed the mindset.
Correct.
Just because they outlawed slavery.
Correct.
Because you outlawed slavery, but you were colonizing Africa, Asia, Middle East, and treating them like slaves anyway.
Yeah.
So slavery by another name. So those same sensibilities were still there. They just do it with an accent.
Yeah. And so to bring this full circle, there was a reason why a lot of people were indifferent when the Queen died. I was indifferent. I mean, I was like, people like the Queen died. I was like, so? I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know. It wasn't a.
Yeah.
I don't have any kind of emotional connection or.
Yeah, it's social conditioning. You know, I guess because the United States is a former colony
Yep.
uh, of the British. Look, you look. How can you tell that you've been colonized by somebody? Because you speak the language of the oppressor, right? Because I'm 100% sure, I could be wrong, but our great grandmother, you did the research,
Yeah.
that came from Nigeria.
Yeah.
The Igbo, like our people Igbo, right?
Yeah.
That I'm sure they didn't speak English.
No.
And I'm sure the process from changing from Igbo to English was not a pleasant process for our ancestors, whoever that great person, man or woman, was.
Yeah.
So yeah, but to your point, yes. As far as historical relevance, of course. As far as emotionally, I'm not feeling any kind of way about it.
Yeah.
But as far as historical relevance, since I love history, she was the longest serving monarch. So that's going to be a quiz bowl question one day.
Yeah.
What have you? And for better or worse, she did represent something. When you look at the glory days, when you say like make America great again.
Yeah.
Well, she's a reminder of when Britain was great, when Britain had all those colonies.
Yeah.
So people look at her for nostalgia. Like I said, you ask most Americans, they can name the Queen, but they can't name the Prime Minister. Hold up, who's the new Prime Minister?
They just got it. Yeah, they just got a new Prime
You're
Minister.
exactly right.
She's a female. I think her name is Sturgill or something like that. Something with the Lisa Stroll. Yeah.
Yeah, but to your point is, there are people who still look. Here's how bad it is. There are people who still think the Queen runs England, not the Parliament and the Prime Minister.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's the kind of ignorance we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, look, man, we're coming up on the last 10 minutes of the show, man.
Yeah.
What else you what? Hey, if anybody's listening, y'all got any questions, any comments, feel free to throw them out there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to revisit what you mentioned earlier about colonialism and how that impacts, and we mentioned earlier how that impacts us, like at the southern border.
Yeah.
I challenge anybody. I challenge because I know there was a gentleman up there early in the week who was making comments about our post and things of that nature. Yeah. And I invited him. I said, "Man, feel free to come on. We're open dialogue if you want, and we're not going to jump down your throat or yell. We're not those type of people.
Yeah.
But we are going to have a rational discussion. So if you see a point that you want to make, or you think we're in error about something, or you think our train of thought is wrong, we invite anybody to come on and have a discussion with us. Me and Ant, we don't bite.
Yeah.
We don't bite. We talk just like this. We kid and joke. But when you come, please come with your information, come with your facts.
Yeah.
Because if you come up here and you're gonna spout stuff and you can't back it up, then Ant, what look you gonna give? What kind of look you gonna give him?
What look?
The look. Oh, we can't get a look away, man. We can't get a look away. We can't get a look away. The look.
So. Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about, look. Yeah, that look.
What you talking about, Willis?
Yeah. But quickly about the southern border, about those countries in Central America and in Mexico. Look at the history of those countries.
Yeah.
Look at the natural resources, the vast wealth those countries have. Look how those countries were not allowed to use their own wealth for their own benefit because of imperialism, American imperialism in the area. Yeah. Who didn't allow democratic elected people to rule and to govern and use their resources to build up those countries. Now those countries are just unstable, and those people are coming here. But you gotta look at the root cause of that, and nobody wants to have that discussion.
And then when you do that, go back and look in your ancestral history, and look at the conditions that was happening in Europe that caused you all to come over to America. And you're going to see you're going to see a lot of similarities.
Oh yes, exactly. When those colonists came over, to Massachusetts, Virginia, places like that, and things of nature like that, they were leaving religious persecution. They
Yeah.
were burning people alive over there,
Yeah.
and they come over here to want to worship free. Look at the even in the late 1900s and the early 20th century. Look at all the people that came from Southern Europe, the Italians, the Irish, the Polish, all those millions and millions of people that came over here
Yeah.
uh, for a better way of life.
Yeah.
So this is nothing new under the sun. This is always people are going to leave tough situations for a better place. The only difference is that these people at the southern border, they're met with vitriol, but they
Correct.
don't have any problems. I live in Duplin County. I'll drive by and we'll see people working in tobacco fields and things of that nature. We don't have any uh, problem exploiting their cheap labor,
Yeah.
so we can have cheap bananas and well, not cheap bananas, but cheap
Yeah.
cucumbers and stuff, and cheap watermelons in the grocery store.
Yeah.
We don't have any problem exploiting the cheap labor because farmers right here don't want to pay people a living wage. They want to get migrant workers. No problem with that. But we have a problem with their presence.
Correct.
But we want the benefits from their presence.
Correct. Correct.
Make it make sense, little bro.
No, I know, man. I know. Well, look, man. That's all I got, man. I don't know if you. Hold on.
Philip said he was gonna put his British Knights on.
Oh, man, I forgot all about British Knights, man. I forgot all about those British Knights.
Philip, man, you're right, man. You're right.
I forgot all about British Knights.
Man, boy, I tell you.
Yeah.
Well, man, I tell you what, man. Yeah, this was a show that a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people are not up on. It was a lot of people feeling some kind of way. It was a lot of stuff on Twitter and everything about reactions to the Queen's death. And I want to put it in perspective is that Americans, we know what we've been taught about the Queen and the monarchy. But there's a whole part of the world in the Middle East, millions, but billions of people actually, now who were colonized, brutally colonized and oppressed by the British Empire, where the monarchy is a figurehead that represented that.
Correct.
So it's almost like when a Native American found out that Andrew Jackson died.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like those type of things, you know.
Yeah.
So we just want to put that in perspective. And listen, do your own research.
Yeah.
Do your own research.
Yeah.
All right.
Lee Hudson just said, I wonder how the folk in India felt about it.
Yeah, we mentioned that. Lord Mountbatten.
Yeah.
Look, when they look, I think India got its independence in 1948. Man, go look at the colonization, the brutal colonization of India, and how they got their independence from Great Britain. Of course, Gandhi influenced Dr. Martin Luther King with his fight for independence from Great Britain.
Yeah.
But the history is there if you want to look at it. And like I said, don't be a victim of cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
If you believe something and you come across facts that renders your belief untrue, have the maturity and intellectual honesty to adjust your opinion to the facts.
Yes.
Not how you feel.
Correct.
Not how you feel. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Well, look, man. Hey, look. Like we always say. If you ever want to come on and just talk with us, just bring your opinion. It doesn't have to be a debate. It can just be a third person that can share their perspective. We definitely want to invite you on. But Junior, I don't know about you, man, but it's been a long week.
Yeah, man. It's been a long week. It's been a week, man. But it's at least you're allowed to enjoy the long week, right?
Yeah. And look, man, I was reading the article. One last thing I was going to say, man. Lately, man, you say that thing about brain fog, man, but I haven't been as sharp as I used to with COVID. And so they're really concerned about this long COVID. And they said, probably like 25 to 50% of people who had COVID that they've experienced these symptoms.
Man, look. You know how I knew I had brain fog? And you can ask Tanya, she'll tell you. When I was watching Jeopardy, and I couldn't get 2 or 3 right,
Yeah.
and I'd be normally getting like 25,
Yeah.
20, 25 right a night. I can only get like 2 or 3 right, and that is now I knew I was over by the time I could do Jeopardy. That's what that was
Hey,
my game.
Phil said we hungry. That's what's wrong.
Well, you need to cook for us. Then you need to cook for us. But yeah, man, I was gonna say one thing, but I think I might hold it for next time. Because we talked about it earlier about me, suppressing my activist instinct
Yeah.
with things that I see that are happening, especially in my community here in Duplin County, when it comes to the treatment of minorities, especially some of our minorities in some of the schools. And I've always suppressed my instinct because you find yourself concerned about other external factors. But now I'm getting to a point now where I'm not going to be concerned about myself too much. I have to expose these things because it's egregious.
Well,
So
we can
just
look.
be on notice. I'm letting my activist instinct loose, and like I said, if the boldness that people are coming out with their racism and vitriol, it needs to be matched with the same energy even more,
I,
and that's where I am. So your little
hey,
bro about to get in some stuff, man.
we
Big
can
brother,
look.
excuse me, big bro about to get in some stuff.
Look, we can do it. We can definitely do a show, man. I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, it's only going to get worse.
It is.
Yeah. So until next time, we out.
Yeah. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.